Hey, welcome to the Art of Relationship show, everybody. Hopefully everybody's doing well. And the new time, like I said, second week in a row, hopefully everybody's doing okay. And I need to check out how to go vertical, or not vertical, I'm sorry, horizontal with TikTok, so I can, with the screen and stuff, I can read everybody's views. So this is the Art of Relationship show, and we're going to talk about excuse me, engagements gone bad or gone wrong. And what is your philosophy about giving the ring back or not? It was a discussion I got into in a certain social media group. Not only that, we're going to talk about how do you bring up certain things you want to try in the bedroom, okay? So don't go anywhere. We're going to come right back right after the intro. Peace, everybody. And welcome back. That was the intro. Hopefully everybody's doing great on this Wednesday. What's happening, okay? A little intro, excuse me, that I do every show for those people that want to know or might be wanting to know. I'm Greg Dudzinski, fully licensed professional counselor, relationship and sex specialist here in Metro Detroit, and been specializing in couples, marriage, sex aspect challenges, if you will, for over 22 years. And I also have a lot of grief, a lot of trauma experience. Yes, I am fully licensed. My office is right behind me, or where I see couples, right? I'm in my office. So going to be talking about engagements that have gone bad, that maybe didn't work out. And what is your rule about the ring, right? There's been a live discussion going back and forth about what do you do with the ring after an engagement goes wrong, right? And you're going to have a lot of people that are logic goes out the window, right? It's all about feelings, all about what is happening in your life at that moment, right? Well, if the engagement ended because she cheated, he cheated, that's one barometer, right? We could look at the legal view of, the engagement, and the ring's almost like a contract, but it goes back legally to the person who purchased it, right? So, you're not married anymore, so it's not communal property, that type of thing. So a lot of people will look at, they might get pissed at my view, but there's so many ebbs and flows and give and take, what is going on with that situation. Okay. So this is where I want people to look at what is happening. Ooh, so I can adjust the phone a little bit so I can see. Hopefully everybody's tuning in. And there's going to be a lot of people joining in live as episode goes on. So please share the video on your timeline, on your page, wherever you're listening to it. If it's YouTube, Facebook, TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, I think all over the place, right? So this is where I want people to be able to do a take on the subjects, the topics. I want to help as many people out like I do. Like I said, my office professionally been doing this for 22 years now, a long time. And I want to help people. I want to help people build their sense of self, their self-love, their self-worth, and also at the same time with the relationship or marriage, and improve or increase the fulfillment of someone's intimacy, sex life, that type of situation. Now, you can always ask your questions. Doesn't have to be related to the topics. I mention this in every episode. It's sort of a free-for-all. It doesn't have to deal with the topic subjects at hand. So please throw your questions, comments down below, and I'll do the best to answer them. And like I said before, that this does not replace the actual professional counseling that I do in my office. Just a disclosure about that, because HIPAA, privacy guidelines, consent forms, everything else. Okay, so what is your take on the engagement goes wrong, right? Unfortunately, it happens. People are engaged. Maybe they're engaged for 1 month and then it breaks up. A year, 5 years, and then it breaks up, that type of situation. And I was maybe involved with, goaded, maybe whatever, going back and forth, being a smartass. And not, I got accused of arguing and I, texting back and forth, whatever. You don't know the voice tones. I'm not into arguing. I love healthy debates, right? I love healthy debates, going back and forth with discussions. But when you're engaged, and it doesn't work out, okay, you don't get married, that type of situation, does the person who purchased the ring get the ring back? And this is a very difficult question where a lot of people, if they get hurt, they're hurt, they're upset, they're ticked. I ain't giving the ring back, whatever. And I'm like, whoever bought the ring, this is my philosophy, okay, unless it's deemed otherwise or agreed upon otherwise, okay? And I'll get into some legal aspects too that I have heard with judges, attorneys, all this aspect, right? Does the ring go back to the person that purchases it? My promotion, what I promote, yes, it does, okay? It's regardless of what happened, it needs to go back. Now, if the person that purchased it doesn't want the ring back, then whatever. That's an easy take, right? But there are people I know, depending on the dollar amount of the ring, that they will sue to get the ring back in a court of law, to get the ring back. Or if that person grabbed the ring and they hocked it and sold it, that they want that money back, that value of that ring, because the engagement was broken off. And people get hurt, they get bent out of shape for not giving the ring back. Well, he did this, she did that, that type of situation. We're talking about, same-sex relationships, heterosexual relationships, that type of situation, and doesn't matter, right? What the sexual dynamics are of the relationship. What happens, and a lot of people will look at, well, that was a gift to me. Well, it was a gift based on a contract that you were going to get married. Now you're broken up, you're not going to get married. That's part of that contract, if you will. If we're going to get married, you get to keep the ring type of stuff, right? Not, no matter what, you get to keep the ring, depending on the dollar value, right? Or, it was brought up in a discussion earlier, like I mentioned, getting in a debate type of situation on social media about this subject. Hey, Kat, what's going on? Den, what's happening? So please join in the live chat. I'd love to hear your view on this. And for it to, I know it can go sideways, right? However, if it's a family heirloom, it was a grandmother's ring, a mother's ring, it needs to go back to the person that it was given to. Absolutely, right? But we're talking outside of that, outside of if it was a family heirloom, right? Mother's ring, grandmother's ring, great-grandmother's ring, that type of situation. Outside of that, what happens? Now, if the person, that's an easy one. If the person doesn't want the engagement ring back, no big deal, right? Whatever. Now, if there's a lot of arguments, this is where I'm talking about when you're engaged, what happens in that situation, right? And a lot of people get upset, whatever, because, it's all about the money. It's not necessarily about the money. It could be, right? But a lot of people will look at, well, I'm going to keep it, whatever. Or some people, I'm the one that picked it out, so I get to keep it. Did you pay for it, right? And there's somebody that is mentioning, depends on who called off the engagement. My situation is, why does it matter? That's my point, right? Doesn't matter if it's, same-sex relationship, doesn't matter. But my also point is, doesn't matter who called off the engagement. No, it's just that it's broken. Now, if someone spent X amount of dollars on a ring, does that mean that other person gets to keep it? No. You weren't married yet, right? You were engaged, and it's still part of, if you want to say, a legal aspect of a contract. And we can get into hurt feelings. I'm very compassionate. It's devastating. I try to keep relationships together, right? That's what I do. So sometimes it's not always possible. And I'm all about people's opinions. I'm all about, respecting people's values and beliefs. And one individual just mentioned, it depends who calls off the engagement. My question is why? That ring was a gift. It's sort of, is it contractual on the contingency? We are going to get married. And if that doesn't happen, does the one who purchases that engagement ring, it goes back to them unless that person wants to keep the ring for whatever reason, then should they pay for that ring? And I'd love to hear your take on this and what your debate is. And we could look at, and I mentioned this at the beginning, one person could have cheated. One person, we could look at all these parameters and should they be taken into consideration? Perhaps, right? It depends on the individual. Then we can get into the debate, what caused the other one to cheat. And that's a whole nother ball game, right? And that doesn't mean it's excused or condoned. And I talk about that on a bunch of other episodes. I'm not, going to get into that dynamics now, but I'd love to hear, put your comments down below. What is your take, depending on who called off that engagement? And a lot of women, and this is where, the great divide between men, women, whatever, or is it based on feelings? Is it based on this? Or there's some people that are entitled, right? Oh, he broke it off, so I'm keeping the ring. Screw him. Well, if he spent $10,000, $20,000, I got people spending $60,000 on an engagement ring, and I'm like, oh my God, again, it's not my life. But and all of a sudden, the engagement's over, and she keeps that ring. Really? What makes that person entitled to that ring, right? And then we could look at, well, we were together, we had sex, I did all this, whatever, I should be entitled to keep the ring. So does that mean that you are a prostitute? Are you a sex worker? I have nothing against them, but it sort of puts into that same timeline, but nobody wants to look at that, right? I'm entitled because I gave my time, whatever, but so did that other person. Right? That other person gave their time, their effort, their body into that relationship as well. So we can look at this ebb and flow, give and take. And I'm here just to throw a different twist, a different take on certain situations, right? And I have people over the years, like I said, I've been doing this 22 years. I have a lot of people that actually would not give the ring back. No, I called it off. I'm keeping it anyways. And most of the cases in their same-sex relationships, same thing happened. The person that purchased that ring took him to court and won because they were the ones that purchased that ring under that engagement would go through regardless if it ended or not. Now, under law in every state's different, right? Talking about property rights, who purchased it, whatever. It would be no different than, say, you helped your partner, him, her, whatever, pick a house out when you were dating, right? Dating, you got engaged, and you helped him or her pick out the house out, and you didn't put any money into that house. Nothing, right? You didn't help pay for anything, closing costs, property taxes. You didn't pay for the mortgage, nothing. Are you entitled to any portion of that house when that relationship ends? Some people believe they are, right? Legally, they're not, because you did not put any money towards the purchase of that home, right? So now you're looking at, is that any different with the engagement ring, right? And a lot of people will look at time, investment, whatever. Both people put time into it. Both people invested energy, effort. Well, hopefully, right? Or why would you want to be with that person to begin with? So again, this is not necessarily a right or wrong, even though I know my voice tone and I'm coming across that. I'm just bringing up points and, what does it take? Is it about the hurt, the pain? And I get that, the devastation. One person wants engaged and the other one says, it's not working out. I want to be done. And then things go nasty, right? How many people will end up destroying the other one's clothes? I got all kind of story. They'll key the car. They'll, burn his stuff, burn her stuff, put bleach all over the stuff. Just destroy the house. They'll break the furniture. They'll bust out windows. I got all kind of stories. And yes, these are reality, people. So I'm looking at, what is your take when it comes down to, it's devastating when an engagement, unless both people agree, hey, we're not working out, we both want to agree on that, we're done. But that's where that happens in that situation. Now, why is an engagement a one-sided contract? Now, my question is it one-sided? Not necessarily, right? And I get your point. It's actually a great point. Is it a one-sided contract, or is it about the value of that ring, right? Is it a one-sided contract? It shouldn't be, but should it, again, go down to the value of the ring, no matter what? Is it one-sided? I get you. I get your point. It could be one-sided. If he calls it off, he breaches that contract, right? So should he forfeit that ring, no matter if it's $5, $10, $15, $20, $30, $40,000? Yeah, that's a good question, right? What is there? Then we could get into the nitty-gritty of why did that person void that contract, right? Was it because he or she wanted to stop being disrespected, not feeling a priority? See, we can get into the nitty gritty, can't we? About that's what I brought up earlier. If, she cheated, he cheated. Is it a one-side aspect? Is it a one-sided contract? Not necessarily, not at all. So I look at, you have to go deeper into what's going on, but a lot of people won't take accountability, right? Say if the guy, he's the one that called off the engagement, I'm going to go even deeper. Why did he call off the engagement? Is he just an a-hole? Let her on, all that aspect, right? So that's where you look at those situations. And someone else mentioned, and I talked about this. I don't think you might have heard that at the beginning. You might have chimed in a little later when I said this, but I did say that. What about the value of time, effort, and commitment? It's the same thing. Both people, and I mentioned this earlier, you might have not heard it. Both people are putting in time, effort, commitment, right? So that's not one-sided. So that could be one-sided as well. You look at, I put this time, all this commitment in, but so did that other person. You get me? So to me, that's a wash. That's neither here nor there. It's that situation about, you both agreed, same thing about getting engaged and all that stuff. But in a relationship, you both are putting in time, effort, and commitment to a relationship, correct? Or hopefully, or like I said earlier, why would you be there if you weren't feeling loved, respected, desired, whatever? So everybody goes to, and it's easy jump to about time, effort, whatever. I put my time in. I gave up my body. Well, so did your partner, So that's where I talked about, is it more now you're taking, I did all that, so I should get paid for that. Is that any different than a sex worker, prostitute, male or female, right? So that is, it's an easy go-to debate topic. But is that really just a wash, right? So in that situation, then we can go in, if it's a guy, we could go in his effort. How much did he spend on going out to dinner, vacations, trips, paying for stuff? We could, we could look at all that stuff too, right? Is that stuff that should be taken into consideration as well? Or the woman, right? The woman could have paid for that and the guy didn't do anything. I work with a lot of situations as that. So this is not a one size fits all. That's why it makes a great debate topic, right? It's not an easy situation to go in. So are you able to look at the other person's perspective? Both. And now what do? Right? And like I said, in a court of law, a lot of times it's going to go back to that situation about who purchased that ring and the dollar amount, right? If it's a couple $100 engagement ring, who is that really a big deal? I'm not going to, it depends on what you can afford. I'm not about bouginess, materialistic, but some people are. And some people will look at, well, I deserve da 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 da. Well, what do both people deserve? And again, that would be a one-sided component as well. It just didn't work out. Both people put time in, both people put effort in, hopefully, right? So that's where I want people to understand, this is not easy. That's why I said, I give, my perspective or my views, and I love playing devil's advocate, not to be a jerk, but to look at throughout relationships, divorce, it doesn't end. And a lot of people will look at, well, I did this. I put in time, effort, commitment. I'm like, so did the other person. But they don't want to look at that. They want to look at, oh, it's only one-sided. Like, oh, the guy, he might say, I'm the one that put the money into it. But did she also do da 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 da? It's both people being able to look at, are you able to put yourself in each other's shoes? And let's face it, when our hearts get broken, when our hearts get ripped out, it's not easy. It's not at all. We want vengeance. We want that person to hurt like we hurt. You get me? So how many people look at it? Is it an entitlement, or is it, like someone said earlier, is it who decides to end the engagement? But then we can go deeper. Why did they decide to end that engagement, right? I'm going to follow through. I'm going to keep the situation about going on to it. Hey, Brandy. Hey, what's happening? I appreciate you tuning in. Digital Dust, what's happening? So please join in. You can join the live chat down below. Throw out your questions, your comments, those situations. And again, it doesn't have to relate to the topic at hand. It's just when a divorce ends, or a divorce ends. Sorry, when an engagement ends, that type of situation, what do, right? How do you divide up furniture? How do you divide up property? And it's usually done by, right, who bought the couch, unless they want to buy the couch from you, the bed, all those situations, right? It turns into that situation. And is that right? Is it wrong? We could look at it from a emotional, mental aspect, look at it from a psychological aspect. We could look at it from a logical aspect about who bought what, right? And that's usually when people live together in a relationship, engaged or not, it usually turns into who bought what gets to keep whatever they bought. That's usually how it goes, right? So why would the ring be any different? Just a perspective. So, but some people might not, hey, you keep the couch, I don't care. You keep that, I don't care. And with some people, men or women, this is, not necessarily a gender issue. It's looking at, people been screwed over financially before. Some people went through nasty divorces and spent thousands, I'm talking tens of thousands of dollars fighting for custody and all this aspect. And it is not easy. So everybody's experiences are different. But that's where you want to look at. My experiences are mine. And I want you to look at my experience, what I went through. What about your partner or former partner that went through similar experiences? Well, I don't want to care about that. It's all about me, right? And a lot of people will look at relationships, look at marriages, it's all about me, right? And I think it was last week's show about accountability, right? And we can look at, does this play a role in, with dividing assets when the engagement broke off, when the relationship broke off? And right, marital property is different. Hey, Sheldon, what's happening? Peace. What's going on? But I want people to understand and look at, the dynamics and what happens. I don't want bad things to happen. I'm all about relationships and marriages working out. I'm all about that. I want love conquers all, right? But unfortunately, the reality is not every relationship or marriage can be saved or should be saved, right? It's looking at what do you do to try to work and solve through those aspects and what is happening to try to make them. And honestly, did you do those things? Did you do the best you could to try to salvage a relationship? We can't control that other person, not at all. But when it comes to the engagement going sideways, what happens, right? What do you do, right? Hurt people hurt people. You broke my heart, so I'm deserving this. You broke my heart, I'm entitled to this, right? It's a different take on it, right? So when you look at the situation, a lot of people will view it from one side, their side, right? Well, how many people will look at, well, this? That's why I ask couples often that are in my office, woohoo, right behind me. I'll ask them, after a while, I'm going to ask them, I'm going to ask both of you, hey, what did you do to cause problems in your relationship? And they're looking at the other one. They're looking at the other one, right? I'm asking both of you. It's easy. You can tell me what the other one did. I'm asking you for yourself. What have you done to cause problems in the relationship? But a lot of people won't want to listen. They don't want to hear that. They don't want to take accountability. And the same thing when the relationship ended, when the marriage ended, when the engagement, what I talk about, ended, right? Well, it doesn't matter what I did. He did this. She did that. It doesn't matter. And then we get into, well, he did this. He shouldn't get the ring back. She did this. He should get the ring back. And we get into, legal aspects about, who bought the ring, that type of situation, like in a breakup. If you're not married or an engagement, you're living together, you break up. And it's usually, let's face it, legally, if you got receipts, who paid for the furniture, or you have somebody that will, oh yeah, you want that, you get that, and they destroy the furniture. And then the other one sues them for the value of that furniture, what they paid for it, right? And it's happened. I can't speak for any other state. I've heard of it, but I know in Michigan, that person that destroyed that furniture, if they bought it, that's their business, right? But if somebody else bought it and they destroyed it and that person takes them to court, they're going to lose. They're going to have to pay for that furniture that they destroyed. Do they have a right to destroy it? And we can get into, as many people will look at, that, you know what? Hey, I got a right to be pissed, hurt, devastated. Absolutely. But I don't have a right to go ballistic. I don't have a right to damage anything. I don't have, that doesn't mean I get to cheat and all that stuff, right? And there's so many people broke off the engagement. You ain't getting the ring back. They flush it down the toilet, right? I got all kind of stories. Garbage disposals. I got all kind of stories, right? And then the person sues them for flushing the ring down the toilet, all that aspect, right? Garbage disposal, damage it, and there's, no insurance on it. And I've had people, they'll take them to court and they'll win that money. Is that right? Whatever, right? From a human ethic and value moral statement might be different than the legal system as we know. So it's looking at what happens in that situation. What do you feel should be right, should be wrong? And Hoda, hey, what's happening, Hoda? What's going on? Want to say hello. But again, you can throw your comments, your questions down below, and it's anonymous, okay? I'm not going to read your name out unless you give me permission to do so. I respect your, privacy or being anonymous as much as possible, okay? Like I said, it doesn't take the place of actual professional counseling that I do in my office behind me. It's, HIPAA, consent forms, all that stuff. I can't guarantee privacy on here, but I'll do my best to respect that. Okay. So looking at those situations, people are thinking about breaking off an engagement, breaking up, and they're like, oh, what happens with this? What happens with that? One person, I'm not moving, you move, right? What do? The lease is in, you rent a apartment, a house, condo, whatever, right? And now it's in both your names, who leaves, who doesn't leave. So that's where you look at the situation. It can be very, very dicey, and it's not easy. Hopefully people can be adults to be able to talk about that and work through that. However, when people get hurt, right, it's that hurt people scenario. And it's sad. Like I said, I can understand it, but that doesn't mean it justifies our behavior or your behavior. Okay. Now, carry on the discussion. I know I'm doing a show at noon instead of 8 o'clock now, so I can be somewhat awake. So there's going to be a lot of people that are going to be actually listening, catching up later on tonight. So I'd love to see the comments. I love people to be able to bash whatever, right? I can handle it. I'm a big dude. I'm a little dude, but emotionally, I'm a big dude. So I can handle it. I love hearing different people's perspective. And that's what I do. I love playing devil's advocate. I love people to think differently or to look at putting themselves in other people's shoes. And let's face it, a lot of people have a harder time doing that than other people. And, we could get into physical violence, all that stuff, right? And which never should happen. Unfortunately, it does. So let's switch it up a little bit and talk about one person's favorite subject, maybe a lot of people's favorite subjects. What about sex, right? Which brought this up. And I, of course, have special episodes. I do episodes on sex, intimacy, those type of situations. How would you like to bring it up to, you want to try something and you're not sure your partner will be open to it or even want to talk about it or discussing it? And talking to a client's last night, actually, session last night, talking about this very thing. So, Greg, why don't you talk about this? And I said, okay, not openly, about their stuff, not at all. But I said, you know what? It comes up, right? When you want to try something sexually, intimately, and you're not sure your partner talks about it, how would you go about it? How do you want to go about it and bring it up? Now, number one, are you open and honest about talking about sexual fulfillment, pleasure, displeasure? Are you afraid to even hurt your partner's feelings, to piss them off, cause an argument? I get that, okay? For a lot of people, this subject is very, very difficult to talk about, right? There might be a guy, man, I'd really love my wife, girlfriend to peg me. That's not me, but hey, whatever, right? And I can't bring it up. She's going to think I'm weird, whatever. And there is a judgment, right? And I talk about, fantasies, right? A lot of people talk about fantasies and then their partner looks at them differently. Oh my God, you're weird, you're sick, you're whatever. And you can't, I was only kidding, right? It doesn't work that way, right? Maybe you were, but they're like, really? No. So walking on eggshells about certain subjects, certain topics, about trying different things in the bedroom, countertop, living room floor, front porch, whatever, right? How would you bring it up to your partner? Number one, respectfully, right? Hey, I'd love to try this. What are your thoughts? And some people, it's sort of funny. They might want to try the same thing, but they never talk about it. And then oh my God, I've been wanting to try it, but I didn't know how you would take it. It's that dance back and forth, right? It's that, I'm afraid they're going to think I'm weird. They're going to think I'm weird. Or what if they don't like it and they judge me for it, right? And all those insecurities, all that stuff comes up. Am I weird to want this? And am I weird to want that? And there's some people that, like I said, it goes to wild to them as having sex with the lights on, right? For some people, it is about, excuse me, it's, having sex during the day. That could be wild for somebody else. And somebody else, it could be more, freaking BDSM stuff, with hooks through their skin hanging from the ceiling, right? Some people love pain, like pain equals pleasure to them during intimacy or sex. So there's different levels about how well do you know your partner. And this goes maybe hand in hand, not only within the marriage, but also when you're dating someone, when you're engaged with somebody, when you're living with somebody, how compatible are we sexually? And we already know emotionally, mentally, that type of situation. Are you able to be talking openly about sex, about what your beliefs and values are? Hey, what do you want to try? What do you like? What do you don't like? And this might be presumptuous on my part, but I tell people, if you're not able to even talk about this stuff, that tells me you're not ready to move in together. You're not emotionally ready to get married, right? And a lot of people, and I get this and I'm going to hear it, they're both like this. They're afraid to talk about it, and they mature, they evolve, and they're able to down the road. Terrific. Awesome. There's no guarantee that's going to happen. I hope it happens. Great. But I'm looking from maybe a logical, pragmatic state. And I want to look at also from emotional state, what is so difficult, insecure, right? Emotional, being open and vulnerable regarding intimacy, right? A lot of people can get naked and have sex with a bunch of people. That's your business. No big deal, no harm, no foul, right? But to be able to talk about what they like, what they don't like, what they want to try, something new, whatever. They're like, I'm shy, I'm whatever, right? Because that's more about maybe the person you are, right? What you stand for, what you don't stand for, what you might like, what you don't like. It's more of an emotional aspect than just being naked physically with somebody. For some people, that's easy. I get it. I understand that. But what would it take for you to even say, hey, I'd like you to play with my butthole, right? I'd like you to, oh, they think that's gross, whatever, right? And I've had couples where she loved butt sex and he was like, ew, that's gross, whatever, right? And again, it's not a right or wrong. It's looking at compatibility and what works for you in the couple you are. Are you able to talk openly and, oh man, I love it when you grab my nipple hard. I love it. Would you like your man saying that, right? Everybody assumes it's a woman, right? Not necessarily. So these are the situations. What would it take for you to be able to bring up openly, hey, I want to try this. I'd love us to try this sexually, right? And could you just bring it up that way? Can you be open and honest? Don't attack your partner. I know you ain't going to like this, but, right? That type of thing. I know you're a prude, so don't. No. Come from a point of care, concern for your partner and also your sex life, right? Come from a point of curiosity. Oh my God, you know what? I'd like us to try this. What's your thoughts on it? And then we can go even deeper. Why do you think something is gross, disgusting, whatever? And one person could like something and the other person don't. We could, I brought up butt sex. For some people, it's very uncomfortable, not pleasurable at all, but their partner loves it and wants it all the time, right? And that's when I joke around. I even said last night, even joke around, hey, you know what? What about if you peg him? And the guy's like, whoa, Greg, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm like, well, do on two others, right? So we're joking around. So it's one of those situations that, is it more of what brings pleasure, or is it more of, oh, it's a man thing, it's a woman thing, it's a non-binary thing, right? Is it more about what brings pleasure to the couple? I'm, all about that, but we all have, and we should have, deal breakers, boundaries, what works for both of you, and to have that safety to be able to talk about it and bring it about, right? A lot of people will talk about, and I get in debates all the time about, porn in itself is not bad. And I could get into the research, stats, all that aspect, right? But you can also look at, hey, me, I'd like to try this. I'd like to try that. I'd like you to do that to me. So it can be more of a use it as exploration, right? And people talk about trying different positions. They'll bring up tantric sex, Kama Sutra. They'll bring up all that stuff. And like I said, most of those positions derive from 3, maybe 4 positions, right? Everybody talks about the wheelbarrow. That's just a variation of guy behind, doggy style, right? Woman reverse cowgirl. That's just another position of doggy style or woman behind, right? Missionary. We could look at all this stuff. A lot of them are all derivatives of like 3 or 4 basic. If you want to say 69, that type of thing would be somewhat of its own genre, if you will. But you look at what would make it easier to talk about. Come from a place of even curiosity. Hey, I'd like to talk about this, or I'd like to do this. And it all depends, realistically, what state your relationship is in, or marriage, right? Are you able, if you're fighting all the time, arguing all the time, and your sex life is down the toilet, and you're like, man, I'd love us to try this out. I'd love to try that out. And the other one's, I don't even want to touch you. I don't even want to touch you. So let's be real. It depends on the state of the relationship, the state of the marriage, where you're at, and your comfort level of how you want to be in that relationship. Come from a point of curiosity, interest. Why not, right? And a lot of people, yeah, I saw this new movie. It's usually not me, but I want to try it out. But when you talk about sex, it's like, right? It's taboo. It's, some people are open and honest. I'm all about that. I promote being open and vulnerable and being able to talk about sex openly in a relationship, right? In a marriage, definitely. And some people are still apprehensive about it, and they'll say, I don't know, all the time, right? I don't know what I like. I don't know. Well, do you want to find out? And if you don't, does that make your sex life or relationship stagnant? Possibly. I'm not you, but it very well could. And number 2, why don't you want to find out what you like, what you enjoy? And we could get into trauma, rape survivor, child sexual abuse. We could get into, oh my God, religion and religious trauma and shaming and guilt, that type of crap, right? That they dictate. We could look into how you're raised, but it comes down to, what do you want to try? And be open and be curious. Have fun with it, right? Hey, I'd like us to try that. And that doesn't mean it's going to work, or it's going to be, you're going to enjoy it. Sometimes one person wants to try something and they're the ones, I really don't, I thought I'd like it, but I don't, that type of thing. It's about being able to talk about openly and honestly with each other about sex, right? And what would it take for you to be more comfortable within yourself about it? And what would it take for your partner and you as a couple to be able to promote and talk about, hey, I want to try this sexual act. I'd like to do this. I'd like to try this out. What would it take to put that in place and to excite and reignite your relationship, or bring a little more spice into it, right? And go from there. So check out my website. It's all redone, theartofrelationships.org. Check that out. Please follow me, like me on social media at LoveGuruGreg. I appreciate it. Thanks so much for listening. Everybody have a great time. I am going to sign off. Now I hope my voice lasts the rest of the day. Seeing clients and couples. Peace and love, everybody. Take care. Bye-bye.